Detective Aaron Hale had spent more than a decade studying what fear did to people, how it bent memory, dissolved logic, and forced a mind to protect itself by inventing lies. Yet nothing in his career prepared him for the Alkmaar case, because this case did not behave like a crime, a mystery, or even a tragedy. It behaved like an intelligence that noticed when it was being observed. The village of Alkmaar existed where paved roads surrendered to dust and the desert stretched endlessly in all directions, a place where the wind never truly stopped moving, and locals believe it carried voices older than language itself. Over the span of 3 weeks, 6 villagers vanished without warning, without evidence, and without resistance, leaving behind homes frozen in moments that should not have been interrupted, pots still warm on stoves, teacups half full, shoes neatly placed by doors, as if reality itself had simply failed to finish its sentence. Officials classified the situation as voluntary relocation caused by economic pressure, a label that fooled no one who had actually seen the houses, and Aaron recognized the pattern immediately, because true randomness never repeated itself this precisely. The villagers refused cooperation until after sunset, insisting daylight angered what watched from beneath the land, and when they finally spoke beneath a dead tree split long ago by lightning, they explained in quiet, exhausted voices that something buried decades earlier had been disturbed and that the missing were not dead, only taken. When Aaron asked who had taken them, the answer came without hesitation, spoken without fear or exaggeration. They said the Jinn, not as folklore, not as superstition, but as fact delivered the way one warns another about a known predator. That night Aaron stayed in an abandoned guest house at the village's edge, a structure that felt subtly wrong in ways he couldn't articulate. The silence felt deliberate, the shadows too patient. And shortly after midnight the power flickered, his phone lost signal. His watch froze permanently at exactly 3:17 a.m., and at that moment 3 slow knocks echoed from the wall behind his bed, not from the door, not from outside, but from within the building itself. When he reached for his weapon and demanded identification, the knocking moved, sliding slowly along the walls in a deliberate circle, always remaining behind him, never allowing itself to be seen. And when dawn finally came, he found 6-fingered handprints burned into plaster, scorched deep as if the wall itself had been briefly softened by extreme heat. The investigation led him to a sealed well on the outskirts of the village. Its concrete cap cracked from below as if something enormous had pressed upward repeatedly, and the villagers refused to approach it, explaining that the well had never been intended for water, only for containment, something ancient sealed there after generations of loss. Soil samples from the site returned results that made no scientific sense. Violent temperature shifts without cause, radiation without source, organic residue that matched no known organism, and that night Aaron dreamed of fire that did not burn but breathed, of heat that seemed to wear, and of a voice that spoke directly into his skull telling him he was not invited and had never been welcome. From that moment on, reality around him began to unravel in small, terrifying ways. Mirrors reflected rooms that did not exist. Shadows moved before their owners. Written notes rearranged themselves when he wasn't looking, and his recorder captured whispers he could not hear in real time, including one playback where his own voice pleaded with him to stop before he replaced the missing. As he dug through sealed archives, Aaron uncovered a nearly identical case from 27 years earlier involving 4 vanished children, a case quietly buried without explanation, and when he tracked down the only surviving investigator from that time, now confined to a psychiatric facility, the man laughed when Alkmaar was mentioned, explaining that Jinn were not demons or monsters, but older beings bound by laws humans have forgotten, and that disturbing those laws invited consequences that could never be undone. The former investigator warned Aaron that such cases could not be solved, only ended, and that the cost always exceeded what a human mind could survive intact. When a child became the 7th disappearance, Aaron ignored orders and returned alone to the well under moonlight, where the cracked concrete finally collapsed inward, revealing a void that swallowed light and exhaled suffocating heat. Within that darkness shapes emerged, towering silhouettes of smoke and ember whose presence bent sound and space, and one stepped forward wearing the stolen face of the missing child, explaining that humans had opened what was closed, and that Aaron himself had been marked long before arriving at the village. Memories that were not his own flooded him. Years earlier, a university excavation, an ancient seal unearthed for academic recognition, warnings dismissed, reports altered, and he understood with crushing clarity that the well was never beginning, only the door, and that he had been the knock. When he begged for the victim's release, the entity offered a choice that was never truly a choice. Replace them or leave them suspended between worlds, forgotten but conscious. And when Aaron awoke at dawn, the well was sealed again, the cracks gone, the disappearances ended. He returned to the city and filed a report listing the cause as undetermined and the case as unresolved. Officially, the nightmare ended there, but something followed him back, something warm and patient beneath his skin. And now, whenever the clock reaches 3:17 a.m., Aaron hears slow knocking behind the walls, feels heat pulse through his veins, and dreams of standing inside a sealed well, knocking softly 3 times on the inside, waiting for someone curious enough to answer.